week is International Anti-Street Harassment Week. And I know that's not one of the popular kids. People don't talk about it much, and to be honest, even I get a little disinterested just hearing those combination of words together. But hear me out. A lot of people don't think street harassment is a problem. And I don't mean that they don't think it exists. Everyone knows it exists. They don't think it's a problem. In the same way that up until a few years ago, most people didn't think that bullying was a problem. Because everyone's been bullied, just like everyone's been harassed. Well, at least women and most LGBTQ people. It's just a part of life. It toughens you up. Except when it leads to something much worse than name-calling. I mean, what was it that finally made people start taking bullying seriously? Do we really need a media storm surrounding a suicide epidemic for us to realize there's a problem? Sexual harassment, which can be defined as anything from whistling and catcalling to grabbing, flashing, and public masturbation, is pretty much well accepted as a way of life. How can you stop something that's readily accepted as a social norm? Well, for one thing, people already are. How many cheesy workplace videos have you seen about sexual harassment? You know, the elbow is the only non-sexual place to touch. And anyone who's gone to college in the past couple of years has had to sit through sessions on, or at least be bombarded with pamphlets about sexual assault. Of course, recent events have more than proven that that hasn't been entirely effective, but things are being done. People recognize sexual harassment as a real issue that we don't have to accept. But those are in private spheres. Places that can be easily controlled by rules and regulations, even laws. Out on the street, anything goes. And by street, I don't just mean an urban sidewalk like here in New York City. It could be parking lots, grocery stores, gas stations. I mean, take a look at Dorothy Gambrell's map of where Craigslist misconnections happen the most by state. In the South and Midwest, it's almost entirely Walmarts. Of course, misconnections aren't tracking sexual harassment. They're supposed to be nice, relatively harmless stories about seeing a cute stranger, but it is something that's generally associated with urban public transit, and this map proves that's not the case. A public space is just about anything, and the variables there are infinite. When you compare it to the clean-cut distinctions and log of people in an office or on a campus, public spaces are practically the wild. Every state has different laws defining what is considered sexual harassment, so it can be hard to tell what counts in the eyes of the law, and even harder to prove it. But proving it isn't going to make the difference. Changing laws isn't going to completely solve the problem. What needs to be changed is people's minds. Accepting street harassment as a way of life, even in its most mild incarnations, makes other forms of gender and sexuality-based violence okay. It's rooted in a history of women being property. It lives on as a collective acceptance that it's just something that happens. And it leads to millions of people around the world every day not feeling safe in their own neighborhoods or their own bodies. Walking home with an escape or attack plan running through your head just because someone else is walking on the other side of the sidewalk. Walking through the mall parking lot after sundown ready to use your car keys as a weapon. And what's worse, accepting so much that that's how the world is that you don't even realize you do all of that until someone else brings it up. But are those minor inconveniences really such a big deal? Arguably not on the surface level, but it's not about trying to arrest people who make an inappropriate comment on the street, or trying to make walking around alone at night a totally okay thing to do. It's about addressing the deeper issue of people not accepting other people as actual equal human beings. It's about striving for a world where everyone can feel comfortable and feel agency in their own life. As Andrew Slack says, it's not about human rights, it's about the right to be human. And all of this can't be solved with a quick fix, with some band-aid legislation and new politically correct terms. It has to start with discussion, with stories, with awareness, and an opportunity to talk about why this happens. One of the organizations leading this movement is called Hollaback. Ultimately, the most powerful thing Hollaback is doing right now is simply talking about it as a real issue when almost no one else is. They invite people to share their stories and hold events all around the world. But they also provide in-the-moment solutions, whether you're the one being harassed or you're witnessing harassment as a bystander. They have smartphone apps to help you find information and share your story, and they have tons of practical information on how to handle the situation in a way you're comfortable with and helps you feel agency and worth as a person. Which sometimes as a bystander can mean not doing anything, and that's okay. There's a long way to go to end street harassment, but it can begin with remembering that most issues, whether they interest us or not, come down to the fact that we are all human. And I know what that means has been debated for centuries, but just really thinking of every person as a complex being worthy of compassion is, I hope, something we can all get behind. So join me in celebrating Anti-Street Harassment Week by checking out all of the links in the description box, but most importantly, just by talking about it.